It is brain cancer, the narcissist manipulation, apple cider vinegar. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I bring you now a confluence of a narcissistic clusterfuck. First of all, narcissists are well known for using illness as a means to manipulate. In some instances, the narcissist is genuinely ill or injured and plays on that for the purposes of triangulating other people with the illness or injury to bring them under control, to gain fuel, and to access residual benefits. More commonly, the injury or illness is exaggerated or simply doesn't exist, having been fabricated by the narcissist for the purposes of the pursuit of the prime aims. I have spoken elsewhere about the narcissist and ill health. It's a common manipulation found amongst lesser and mid-range narcissists, especially those of the victim cadre. But there's another aspect also that can utilize ill health or injury, which is the concept whereby the narcissist plays the white knight, whereby the narcissist creates the problem that they come in and then solve. For instance, they start a fire, which they then arrive to play the hero, putting the fire out. They steal some property, only to later find it, making them seem like the saviour of the person who has lost the relevant item. They create the drama and then arrive to resolve it all. Certain narcissists use both of these manipulations, ill health and white knight, and combine them by pretending to have an illness and then demonstrating to the world that they have created the cure. What a marvellous way to assert control over potentially millions of people, to place yourself on a pedestal so that you are not only adored and admired, but you are swept away on a tsunami of gratitude, huge fountains of fuel from people who believe that you will now be able to cure them, that you could potentially save their lives. Furthermore, there is the opportunity for residual benefit by charging for this information or monetizing your videos talking about the cure that you have come across. All of these narcissistic worlds collide in relation to a woman called Belle Gibson. She said she had brain cancer. She lied. A young wellness influencer turns up at the funeral of another 20-something wellness influencer. It doesn't augur well, pun intended, when we're talking about influencers, another narcissistic hotspot that attracts narcissists because of the efficacy of the ability to pursue the prime aims. These influencers had both built up millions of followers by being rebels against mainstream medicine. Both had claimed to have cured their cancer and saved their own lives using enemas, juices, and positivity. They positioned themselves as brave truth tellers against the conspiracies of Big Pharma. They embodied a beautiful idea that no one had to suffer from the scary chemicals that modern healthcare science asks us to trust. Yet, the uninvited guest, Belle Gibson, sobs with a force that stands out as extreme even to the assembled mourners. Ever the narcissist. Remember, the narcissist wants to be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. Watch my videos about death and the narcissist to see how the narcissist hijacks the death of others to make it all about them. Gibson is harbouring a lie that she has metasized. Gibson doesn't have cancer, and she has only limited time before the fake life she has built, which won her fame, fortune, a best-selling app championed by Apple, and a Penguin book deal, will end. This is a dramatic scene from Apple Cider Vinegar, a popular television show on Netflix. It begins with a disclaimer. The following is inspired by a true story. Certain characters and events have been created or fictionalized. Seconds later, the lead character depicting Gibson says, "This is a true story, based on a lie." Already, we are in murky waters. Is this inspired by a true story? A true story, or a story based on a lie? Yet, that is entirely appropriate to the subject matter. Gibson will go down in history as one of the biggest internet fraudsters of our time. The wellness industry is based on an unregulated brew of truth and lies, peddled in dumb faith or opportunistic cynicism. In other words, it is a hunting ground for the narcissist. Its central premise is that we are being hoaxed by doctors, corporations, and modern life in all its toxicity. Conspiracy theory, often found with narcissists, particularly those of a mid-range variety. Since Gibson was unmasked in 2015, the industry has only boomed. In 2022, the global wellness industry was predicted to swell to $8.5 trillion by 2027, at least double the value of global prescription drug sales. Middle-class women grease the palms of breathwork gurus, and nobody dies. If the king appoints a pro-homeopathy doctor as head of the royal medical household, we can chuckle indulgently. But all of this has sinister repercussions. The Vaccine Confidence Project at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine found that in 2023, people in most countries showed falling confidence in routine childhood immunisations. This was especially true of women those aged under 35. And Gibson wasn't or will not be the only one. There then followed the premiere of Scamander, a TV series on Disney that depicts the true story of Amanda Riley, a devoutly Christian young Californian woman who faked cancer for almost a decade, defrauding thousands of people via her blog, Lymphoma Can Suck It, and raking in $100,000. She pleaded guilty to criminal charges in 2021 and is in jail. Another individual utilizing ill health, which was faked, for the purpose of asserting control over an audience to draw fuel from them by way of their responses, who did not care the impact that her behavior had upon people, demonstrating her absence of emotional empathy, her preoccupation with success in utilizing this blog, and, of course, the residual benefit of making money. It's important to note that, like Elizabeth Holmes, another narcissist, the founder of Theranos, supposedly a breakthrough in blood diagnostics, which was actually a scam on a massive scale, these women are young and pretty. This is where, again, a particular social media honeypot caters to narcissists, particularly those of the somatic nature. Instagram is a place where aesthetics rule. The young women who form its core audience crave aspirational gloss. That goes too for the shows about the humiliating downfalls of their heroines. The Dropout about Holmes and her lies about producing wellness centres of the future was a huge hit in 2023. For the social media generation, young women are the face of integrity, and therefore an attractive young woman who comes along telling you that she has cured her brain cancer by using enemas and fruit juices, who has claimed that she's beat her lymphoma as a consequence of natural medicines, carries with it the ability to appear credible and for an audience that laps it up. Riley, she falsified medical records. She looked at hospital photos and even shaved her head to look as if she'd gone through chemotherapy. All of these steps taken, of course, to dupe people. This may come under a bracket of what is known online as the Munchies, or a new category of Munchausen syndrome known as Munchausen's by internet. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept of Munchausen by proxy, I have done videos about this topic demonstrating that many of the individuals involved in this are actual narcissists who are using the pain and suffering of other people in order to pursue the prime aims. Similarly, here, there are individuals who are not unwell, who feign illness, who are narcissists, and use the online environment as a means to reach a large audience whom they can control through sympathy and then marvelling at their brilliance, to then receive fuel and residual benefits by way of the money. In Apple Cider Vinegar, Gibson models her ascent in the wellness industry on a woman suffering from multiple tumours in her arm, a teen magazine journalist who is known in the show as Miller. This character is an amalgam of various wellness influencers, but its central inspiration is Jess Ainscough, a real woman known to her fans as the Wellness Warrior. In reality, Gibson met Ainscough only once, and briefly, and Ainscough found something troubling about Gibson even then. At the memorial of Ainscough, one mourner in particular stood out as strange. The church in a small town north of Brisbane was packed with a close circle, but also that Ainscough reached through her Wellness Warrior website and her healing cookbook, Make Peace with Your Plate. Ainscough's death was a sobering occasion for the beliefs of her millions of acolytes. Since her diagnosis 7 years earlier, Ainscough had vowed to heal herself through alternatives to mainstream medicine and had announced herself cured. "I saved my own life," she wrote. "I didn't accept that my doctor's solution was the only course of action," she wrote on her blog. "I systematically detoxified my body and mind." Many followers around the world pledged to follow her example, and even her mother, Sharon, when diagnosed with breast cancer, rejected conventional medical treatment in favour of a series of improving alternative remedies. Sharon died in 2013. Ainscough returned to conventional cancer medicine in desperation. In her last blog post before she died in 2015, she wrote that she had to drop the fear and ego that were preventing me from exploring these options sooner. The wellness influencer who promised she could cure herself of cancer had died. Yet Gibson, who barely knew her, wept at times uncontrollably and over the top of everyone else. Superficial relationship, performative behaviours done to draw attention to herself by virtue of pity play and false compassion. Gibson went from the church to the family home, where she began hysterically sobbing. At one point, she invited Ainscough's fiancé, Talon, whom she had never met, into the bedroom where she wept on his shoulder. Lack of boundary recognition. "I was just feeling sorry for her," Talon recounts. In fact, with supremely dramatic timing, Gibson had just received an email from a pair of investigative reporters, Donnelly and Toscano. They had been tipped off about Gibson by a friend of hers. Gibson was at the peak of her powers. The Australian's wellness app, The Whole Pantry, was downloaded 200,000 times in its first month and had been chosen for pre-installation on the Apple Watch. She had received $500,000 Australian in 2 years, residual benefits, mostly on the assumption she was donating it to charity, fraudulent behaviour. She rented $1 million beach house, bought a BMW and designer clothing, and had her teeth straightened, all somatic actions. Gibson said she was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer at the age of 20. After just 2 months of conventional treatment, she said she defied her daughters to go it alone, revision of history. She said she had been given just 4 months to live by her hospital team, revision of history, pity play. But as Gibson wrote in her book, The Whole Pantry, she was empowering myself to save my own life. There is a lot of empowerment in the anti-medical side of wellness, a remedy for the powerlessness and vulnerability felt by any patient. Gibson's tears at the memorial could have been part of her craving for attention. Indeed, they were. Just the day before, Toscano and Donnelly had sent her an email with all of their allegations about her fraudulent behaviour. Gibson replied with an email saying she was attending the funeral of a close friend and someone who mentored me through many years, nullification of threat to control through pity play. She never contacted the journalists again and would soon be revealed as the perpetrator of this awful hoax. Gibson confessed in April 2015, a month after the memorial, to Australia's Women's Weekly that none of it is true. Now, you might wonder, why would a narcissist confess in such circumstances? But in some instances they will do so because the narcissism recognise that the maintenance of denial can no longer be maintained, which is the first line of the twin lines of the narcissistic defence, and instead they would fall upon telling the truth, but do it in terms of blaming others for why they'd gone down this route, and also to throw themselves on the mercy of others by way of a pity play. Since 2010, when perhaps not coincidentally she gave birth to her son, Gibson had been lying about having cancer, just as online forums like Instagram began to boom. She would post messages like, "I have been healing a severe and malignant brain cancer with natural medicine, Gerson therapy, and foods." Pity play, also suggestion of white knight to self. Gibson promoted this therapy, which was invented by the German doctor Max Gerson in the 1920s and involves multiple coffee enemas and drinking 9 kilos of fruit and vegetables a day. Cancer Research UK states there is no evidence to prove that Gerson therapy works as a cure for cancer. Gibson encouraged many, mainly young women, to question evidence-based treatment. A BBC documentary on Gibson, Bad Influencer, featured a young woman called Kylie, who found Gibson online and decided after seeing her success that chemo wasn't working for me, I should come off it and try clean eating. Maxine was a university student in the UK who called Gibson Queen Bee of Wellness and was inspired by her to come off her treatment for ulcerative colitis. She said to the BBC, "We were vulnerable, and Wellness came along and said, 'Hi, I can help.' Exploitation of the vulnerable, lack of emotional empathy." Since discovering Gibson was a fraud, Kylie restarted chemotherapy and is now in remission. Gibson did not face criminal charges, but was ordered to pay a fine. Donnelly and Toscano have updated their book to say that the fine was still outstanding back in 2023, which demonstrates again an inability to accept her punishment and show accountability. Thus you have here a clear narcissist who has used ill health as an excuse to engender sympathy, to assert control, to draw fuel, to gain residual benefits. She has revised history. She has then claimed to be her own saviour until such time as exposure came, and then threw herself on the pity of others and ended up being fined for her actions. This narcissist showed no concern or emotional empathy for people that had taken her poor advice, that had followed her, that had paid money towards her, which she had grifted and kept for herself. She's not alone. There are others that operate within this industry, two of which have been touched upon in the course of what I've explained to you in this video. But it's almost a perfect storm. A narcissist utilizes supposed vulnerability, the vulnerability of others, pity plays, the platform of Instagram and its aesthetic, the opportunity to assert control, draw fuel and gain residual benefits, claiming that she is so brilliant that she can cure her own cancer, thus being deluded and engaging in magical thinking, and all of this comes together to dupe thousands of people. It's a clear manipulation, used clearly by a narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.